Nick, good to see you. We are diving into the headlines today. A popular financial guru proposes an 8% withdrawal rule, but is that realistic? So recently, Dave Ramsey, who is a well-known financial expert, I put it in quotes, dismissed the common advice to withdraw only 4% of your retirement savings annually as, quote, moronic. He is instead advocating for an 8% withdrawal rate. The financial world exploded upon this advice. What do you think?
The world exploded because if you actually watch the script of when he did it, it's actually online. You can go to YouTube and you can type in Dave Ramsey 8% withdrawal, and there's going to be all recordings of it, because it was actually not just recorded audibly, but it was also recorded visually. So you get to see him on the microphone, and he kind of loses his cool. He got really emotional. As a matter of fact, I have the script of what he said. And when you read the script, I will actually read it here. When you read the script, you can tell he got really kind of heated. But what he said is, and this is a transcript of what he said. He said, the problem is when you go down these stupid nerd rabbit holes in these Reddit threads with these morons who live in their mother's basement with a calculator. And then you didn't put that out into the dadgum community. And then people go, I don't have enough money. It's hopeless. I'll never be able to save enough to retire. And then he goes on to say what blew everything up. $1 million should create for you an $80,000 income, boys and girls, perpetually, like in forever. You should be able to pull $80,000 forever and never destroy it. When you tell people that $1 million creates a $40,000 income, you go, oh, I've got to have $2 million and I can't make that, then the system doesn't work. So what you're doing with the bogus math is you're stealing people's hope. Sometimes you do need to be the stern, loving parent and say, you know what, the income that you have isn't, you're going to have to live with that because you haven't saved enough. Sometimes that's just reality. But then he goes on to say, that's why I'm pissed about it. Again, this isn't me saying this, folks. This is Dave Ramsey.
Dave Ramsey, yeah.
But yeah, that's why I'm pissed about it, because it's hope stealing with super nerds that have never really done anything to start with. They don't have any investments. They just have theories. I've actually freaking got investments. Again, not me, Dave Ramsey. He's saying this. My money is actually invested exactly the way I teach people to invest it. And I'm easily making 12% on my money easily, average. So it's just asinine that we do this stuff. And for more information on that, you can go online and look at all the debunking of his 12%, what he says, like you're going to get 12% each and every year. And so what has ended up happening with this is these super nerds united, because these guys aren't super nerds at all. They are economists. They are the super bright, like numbers gurus who have gotten together and basically said that he's wrong. One guy, for instance, you got this article here, Wade Pfau. Well, let me read you Wade Pfau's resume. Again, Dave Ramsey's calling this a super nerd. Wade Pfau is a professor of retirement income in a PhD in financial and retirement planning at the American College of Financial Services. He's co-director of the American College Center for Retirement Income. He's the RICP program director at the American College. He's written several books, including most recently Retirement Planning Guidebook. He's a co-editor of the Journal of Personal Finance. He publishes frequently in a wide variety of academic journals. He hosts a Retirement Researcher blog. He graduated with a master's degree from Princeton and a Bachelor of Art and Science degrees from University of Iowa. He's also a chartered financial analyst. Look up what those are. Chartered financial analyst. I mean, they are the creme de la creme. So what right. Wade Pfau says is his research is more thorough than what Dave Ramsey says. You're just going to be a Reddit thread, whatever, in the basement of whatever. But he said that when he back tested U.S. and international markets, Wade Pfau did this, he says a sustainable withdrawal rate for a globally diversified portfolio of exchange-traded funds should be inflation adjusted at 3.5%. If a retiree expects the money to last at least 30 years, not 8%. That's a sure way. What Ramsey is saying is a sure way to have that money run out. And you can tell I'm kind of heated about this because I saw this and people are listening to this. And I don't even think Dave Ramsey has a license. So that means nobody is overseeing him to make sure he's saying the right thing. Yet on my side, every time I do something, I have like a whole slew of attorneys that got to look through things to make sure that I said things correctly. And I doubt that Dave Ramsey has that. So
he is not, yes, he is not licensed. He's unregistered. He's unregulated, which means he can say whatever he wants. So
there you go.
Yeah. You know, I think I'd rather have my retirement fortune in the hands of a super nerd, but that's just me. So I want to dive a little bit deeper though, Nick, because Ramsey also recommended that retirees invest all their assets in equities. Wouldn't that be exposing retirees to a lot of risk and market volatility?
It would, but retirees are not his target market. If you listen to his radio show, he's really talking to 20 and 30 somethings, people who are in debt, who are trying to get out of debt. That's where everything was written. And so Money Magazine, I think, came out years ago and said, follow Dave Ramsey's debt advice, but not his investment advice, because he's really telling people you should invest your money in 4 different types of stock market index funds, and that will work out, and that's how it should work. I mean, here's a guy who makes money by his shows and all that type of stuff in his seminars. He doesn't even use his retirement money or that he's saving up for income. So he really doesn't know what happens when you're using your retirement savings and you're drawing down on it and then the stock market crashes. For example, in 2022, now again, this is a guy who says you're going to get 12% every year, like I can do it. Well, in 2022, the S&P 500, one of the index funds that I think he suggests, was down 23%.
Right.
So if you withdrew 8%, let's say you had $1 million. So the market goes down 23%. You withdraw 8% out because you got to live off that, because he says withdraw 8%. You now have $708,000 left. In order to get back to even after that happened, you have to get a 41% gain just to get back to even. And so when he's talking about diversification, he's talking about diversification in one entity, the stock market, and that's not true diversification. Yet that's what he pushes as diversified. And again, I just think retirees need to stay away because that's not really good advice for that demographic. Maybe it's a good one for people right out of college.
Right. No, and I think his advice for getting out of debt, like you said, is very sound. Let's keep moving on though. When could an 8% withdrawal rate be sustainable?
Well, I mean, if the stock market gains 8%, but it doesn't do 8%. Even if you say I'm going to average 8%, it's not like it does 8% every year. It's not 8, 8, 8, 8, 8. It might be up 10, down 4, up 12, down 5, up 7. It's never just 8%. So that's why it's really hard to use a finite number like he was trying to do. Another thing is if you're older, if you're like 85 or 90 and your health is not so good, well, then an 8% withdrawal rate, because you don't need that money to last, that might be something, something to do there. But the thing is, the reason that 8% rule is so outlandish is because if you retire at, say, 60, you got to get that money to last like 35 years.
Right.
And so if you withdraw out too much, you could be ending up with a lot less money later on. Look, for instance, if you look at a stock market chart, look at the S&P 500 from 2000 to 2010. They call that the lost decade for a reason, because from 2000 to 2010, the stock market was like at the same level. And so if you took out 8% every year during that 10-year stretch, 8 times 10, that's 80%. You would have taken 80% of your retirement funds out and spent it, and you'd have 20% left 10 years into retirement. To me, that's scary. I don't want to ever have to go back to somebody and have to say, you know what, you got to cut back because we planned wrong.
Or go back to work.
Or exactly. Who's going to hire a 75 or an 80 or an 85-year-old? Right. And we don't want people to be 80 years old, broke, busted, and disgusted.
Right. So, Nick, let's just start back a little bit, because the general rule of thumb is that 4% rule, but even this percentage is under debate. Why?
So if we go back like towards 2017, 2018, there was a lot of articles that said that's really like a 3.5% rule. And that was because at the time, banks were paying nothing. Money markets were paying nothing. CDs were paying nothing. And so the long-term interest rates were nothing. And right now, interest rates are better, but that's not going to last forever. So that's one reason, is because long term, if interest rates aren't always at this level, you might not really be able to withdraw 4% each and every year because the market, the banks aren't making that. Another thing could be volatility. You got to account for the ups and the downs. And another
Right.
thing's longevity. If you have 35 years, again, going back to that example, if you retire at 60 and you got to go to 95, that's 35 years you got to get this money to last. And so if you withdraw out too much too fast, then you're not going to have any later on. So that's the best way to look at it, is there's these different things. Just saying 4%, you almost have to put guardrails around this, because that's not exactly the perfect number either. It just depends on what's being earned in your accounts.
Right. So then, brass tacks, Nick, what percentage are you recommending to clients, and how often do you revisit that number?
Well, you've got to revisit it almost every year, because I look at it as two pots of money. When we create financial plans, I want to look at what somebody's lifestyle is costing them to live the way that they want to live, to retire well and retire successfully. And I want enough protected income coming to them every month so that they can live the life that they really want. So I call that the protected income bucket. The next bucket is what I call the what if bucket. That's if the stock market does good, then there's some more money even out of this what if bucket that we can pull out to live life even better. So look at it again, going back to that analogy, like guardrails, where we know we can take out up to this amount, but not more, because that's too much. And we can take out at least this amount. And so we have these guardrails that we want to live in between. And we want to just check that out every year, and make sure that you're not taking too much, but then you're not taking too little, because that's the point of retirement. The point of retirement was to build it up to live and retire well. And I love hearing stories when clients come in and they'll tell me about where they've traveled to and things like that. That's what it's all about. That's what the money is for. And making an impact in your church or your charities or your kids and your grandkids. That's what it's all about. So you don't want to live like a miser, where you're so afraid and you're not pulling anything out. But you can't also be on the other end of that, where you're just throwing caution to the wind. You're saying, yeah, Dave said 8%, so I'm gonna pull out 8%, and then the stock market crashes, and now you have to go back to work. That's not good either. And so it's a little bit of art and a little bit of science to find that number, but you got to look every year. Yeah.
Well, Nick, you are my favorite super nerd, and I say that with love.
I'm not wearing glasses, but
and you don't live in your mom's basement either, but
I never did live in mom's basement.
All right. But I think it's worth having a conversation with you or another super nerd to crunch the numbers, figure out your own withdrawal rate. So if somebody would like to do that with you, Nick, how can they get a hold of you?
Oh, the easiest way is people can go to our website, group10financial.com. All the phone numbers and everything is there, access to our YouTubes, all that. And then you can even set up a 15-minute strategy session. And what I would suggest is when you call in for that, you want to make sure you're getting a retirement income analysis done. That way you can actually see in dollars and cents, if I have this amount and I pull out this amount, how long is my money going to last?
Right.
And we want to make sure that that lasts. And that's the easiest way to do it, not just to get on the radio and just make these wild assumptions. Let's actually do the math and let the math do things versus our emotions. And Dave just got really emotional. Unfortunately, I think that probably affected a lot of households, but it's math over emotion, folks.
Always. Yes. Nick, thanks so much for your time today.
It's good being with you.